now I'm going to introduce the,
Dan Join, right there.
and he's the interrogator. He's going to interrogate me, and I guess you guys.
He's actually the moderator.
He's the moderator.
Okay, he's the moderator.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Raimondo. I was wondering, since a lot of what we're talking about is intervention and anti-war and non-intervention, how do you think we should have responded to the events of 9/11, vis-a-vis our involvement in Afghanistan, not necessarily in Iraq?
Right, great question. We were the first people on the internet to have an analysis, and the headlines I remember was, "Kill them and get out." And that, I think, pretty much stands the test of time. You know, when the mafia was blowing up people in Chicago, we did not invade Italy. Al-Qaeda is like the mafia, or they were until we invaded the rest of the world and went crazy and had another agenda altogether. A gang of war criminals called the neoconservatives, grouped around President George W. Bush, Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz. They had key positions in the administration, and they were ready. They had their war agenda, and they were all ready for this. And they invaded Iraq. So that's like saying, okay, you come up to me and punch me in the mouth, and then I turn around and punch the guy next to you, but not you. I mean, what's going on there? So they had an agenda, and we are reaping the bitter fruit of that agenda today. We are in a war, not only in Iraq and not only in Afghanistan, we're in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Do you really want to get in a war with a country that has nuclear weapons? It's crazy. I mean, this is insane. So their whole program was to conquer the entire Middle East and do what they called drain the swamp. Their theory was that the culture, that the Arab culture was inherently evil, that Islam is inherently aggressive and had to be expunged from the earth. I mean, this is the neoconservative doctrine. So our armies went in there and attempted to do that. But of course it's crazy. I mean, you can't do that unless you kill everybody in those countries, because they're all Muslims. They're all Muslims. Are you going to kill them all? Okay, there are Christians who are now being killed by the government that we set up, by the great democratic government of Iraq, which our soldiers are dying for. They are now, controlled by Islamists.
Can we just take a break though?
Okay.
And other people have thoughts. We want to give.
If you have a question in the back, come up and ask it. There's the microphone.
We can invite them up.
Sure.
We should have given
My name is Sarmac. I'm actually the president of the Student Veterans Organization here.
Cool.
My first question to you would be just a simple yes or no. Is it not true that these documents you speak of, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that give organizations like yours the right to assemble and the right to free speech, they are able to be used because we went to war with Britain?
Because we went to war with who?
With England, I'm sorry.
With England?
Is that not true?
Well, first of all, let me correct you. The Constitution doesn't give us the right. Okay, the Constitution reveals that right that is already inherent in our nature as human beings. So that's one thing. Okay, the right is pre-existing. The document merely expresses what is already there. Okay. Yes, I uphold the Constitution, and in fact, there are, in my view, there's one just war that we have fought in this country, and that is the revolution. But that was a war against imperialism, against a king, and against an empire, which we have become. We are King George III today.
If I may just follow up on that.
Sure.
You speak of it's a right for everyone, and the document just expresses that.
Right.
So wouldn't all countries have that right to free speech? If it is a human right.
Right. But you didn't listen to my talk. The American Revolution was a revolution exemplary. That is, it was unique. It can't be exported by force. It cannot be. They must liberate themselves. It has to be their idea. And you can see that playing out today. I mean, are you really going to tell somebody who is basically living in the 7th century in Afghanistan? Are you going to lecture them on the Enlightenment and on, the nature of human rights when they're cutting off the noses of women who, won't pay the bride price? I mean, it can't be exported, at least by force. I mean, it can be exported through means of ideas, that is peacefully, but only over a long period of time.
Can we just ask one of the interrogators wants to ask a question now? Thank you.
Well, wait, I mean, we're having this
Do you have a follow-up?
Hold on.
You want to say something?
Yeah, let him talk, just for a second.
Thank you. The only thing I would say is, I'm not saying delivered by force.
Right.
That's not what I meant by expressing it's a human right. But if it is a human right, like you speak of, without having to use force, shouldn't these other countries already be doing it?
So what you're saying is that rights are universal. That's what I think you're saying.
Yes.
And that therefore we must recognize this. Okay, rights, I agree with you. Rights are universal, but we have limited resources. We have limited power. We are not gods. And we have something called humility, meaning that we recognize that we cannot right every wrong. It's impossible. Even a policeman recognizes this, who is walking through, a bad neighborhood, and he sees, okay, 2 kids are having a fight, but then on the other side of the street, there's a gun battle going on. So he has to choose. He has limited resources. What is he going to deal with? So what I am saying is that we have very limited, we are a bankrupt country. It's costing trillions of dollars, not to mention human lives. So what I am saying is that history shows that we've got to be really careful, that we've got to, it's a bad idea to intervene.
We want to make sure that other people get
Oh,
their thoughts addressed
Go
too.
back.
Oh, okay.
We have one from the interrogators.